I want to start present day with you. So you're currently VP of Programs at the California Community Foundation. So tell me a little bit about the California Community Foundation and what your mission is there.
Yes, I, for the last 3.5 years, have been Vice President of Programs at California Community Foundation, which this year celebrates 100 years of service. And I like to describe us as LA's charitable foundation, public charitable foundation. And essentially we are an institution that allows individuals and institutions to practice philanthropy. So we house funds for individual donors and invest them and make grants on their behalf. And I oversee a team that's responsible for grants that go out into nonprofits in the arts, education, healthcare, foster youth. We have a juvenile justice initiative. So it's a wide variety of interests that we have, but the one common thing is that we are really investing in the quality of life, especially for the most vulnerable Angelenos.
Now, I think some people, I don't think this as an Anderson student, but I think some people would think business school and the nonprofit world, I don't get the connection.
Right.
So explain to me why do you find that business school has helped you in this world?
Every day. And when I was a student here, there really wasn't a natural nonprofit track. But now, everyone's a social entrepreneur, and, things like Teach for America are highly coveted positions. So I think nowadays there's a very blurry line between the private sector and what I like to call the social sector, as opposed to I don't like to call it nonprofit, especially as an MBA. I don't think, I think a healthy nonprofit has a surplus, what we'd call a profit in the business sector. So I ended up in this sector because I eventually realized that I could use the things I learned here at Anderson to great use and benefit in the social sector. And it's where my heart is. My mom's a retired school teacher and my dad's a retired court clerk. So I think I was destined to be in this kind of work, but to kind of bring a more disciplined mindset to how you deploy resources, human, financial, physical. So, yeah.
From your experience here at Anderson, are there particular nuggets? This could either be in the classroom or with friends that you met at Anderson. Is there anything that you can think of that really, for you, has special meaning today?
It's always been about the people. The students, many of my classmates are still really close friends. We don't wait for the 5-year reunion mark to see each other. And I think one of the blessings of now living in LA, where so many alumni are concentrated, it's easy to stay connected to other classmates. And then, old professors. I subsequently worked here, so that only added to the experience of being on this campus in the Anderson School. So I think the greatest contribution, though, it made was to my career, in that in coming back to work here, I got to take all those B-School lessons and run a nonprofit, the Reardon programs, that are still here and bigger and better and brighter than ever. And that was the launch of the nonprofit track that I'm still on.
Give me a sense of the AfricanAmerican experience for you at Anderson.
Yeah, back then it was the Black graduate experience because we weren't African Americans yet. I remember there were 18 of us in my class, and 18 of about 330, and we had, much like I think students today, a certain identity and awareness that there were, while few of us in number, there was a strong tradition and expectation to help each other out and to try and pave the way for people who are coming behind. And the numbers got even smaller, like desperately smaller after I left, single digits even. And so it's been great to see things build back up and to know people like Alex Lawrence and Kim Freeman, who are also alums, work here on campus. And I think it's great to see them here. And Linda Baldwin, who I always credit for giving me the shot to come and work here. I think people like them are really critical to creating a culture that's inclusive, not just for African American students, but for the entire Anderson community, especially in a time when, despite having a president in the White House who you know say, look, I look like him, we know that there's still lots of work to do in terms of making this campus a place where people feel included and respected and celebrated. And then, you know, when we go out into the wider world, being able to say, I'm an Anderson alum, and this is what it means, and this is what it meant. I came back to campus last week to see Dean Olean interview Al Osborne, who is described as a legend. Well, he was a legend back then, but I guess he's a super legend now. And I remember one of the things he said was, you know, there's positional power that comes with a title. Okay, yeah, great, I'm a VP, but the more important thing is personal power. And as African Americans, I think that's a powerful thought, because even if we may feel like we're coming from disenfranchised communities, that the level of personal, the clarity that we have about who we are and the people we come from, and I'm thinking about my parents and grandparents, it demands a certain standard, especially since there's so few of us. I think we can't squander the gifts that we have, and that we have to magnify them regardless of history.
So the numbers of underrepresented minorities, not just at Anderson, but looking at the business school landscape, were low then and they're low today. Is that gap a problem, and why is it a problem, in your opinion?
It is what it is. The gap, I mean, we numerically, African Americans in this city, this county, represent 8 to 10% of the population. So I think we've become accustomed to the fact that we are literally mathematically and numerically a minority. Now, is that a problem? Well, it can be a problem when we're discounted, overlooked, disrespected, or really not included. And that's why I use the word inclusive a lot. And so that's why I feel it's important in some ways to come together, to concentrate and think about how we represent ourselves in the Anderson School community, in the wider UCLA community. I happen to serve on the UCLA Alumni Association Board of Directors, and that group, which is widely diverse in age, race, station, profession, is intensely concerned about diversity questions on campus right now. You know, today there was an op-ed about the 59 faculty members who don't believe there should be a class in diversity here, which I think is pretty striking when you think about UCLA in California. So I think that makes for real questions for students like you, and I'm glad that Dean Olean and people like Professor Ochi and others are very concerned about the next generation of high school students, college students that come through programs like the Reardon Scholars and Fellows, so that the numbers, while always small, though the quantity may be small, the quality is high, and that people are ready to succeed academically, professionally, emotionally. Business school it's intense. So I remember Linda Baldwin always saying, I need to admit you knowing that you can not just get in, but you can get out. And so, I think this is not unique. These are similar questions that other communities ask themselves, women. LGBTQ, Latino students, international students. I think even Caucasian men, in looking around California, can start to go, wow, maybe I'm a minority in some regards. And so I think this is a great place to be in school because California is always a bellwether for the rest of the country. So it's a great laboratory.
That's great. You pointed towards my next question, another big question, which goes back to the gap.
Yeah.
Solutions.
Yes, that is a hard question. And I think in so many ways, Jason, the questions of 2015 are the same questions we were asking in 1987, 88, 89 when I was here. And I think solutions they start with expectations that that students and faculty will have an interaction that allow students who may be in a numerical minority to succeed. And I think that part of that is helping underrepresented students know how to thrive in an environment like this. And that may mean like things that seemingly are trivial, like where do you sit in the classroom? Do you sit in the first 3 rows where you are going to be visible, you can have a line of sight with your professor, you don't feel like you're isolated in the back? I mean, little things like that I think are part of the solution. Outside of the classroom, I think there are concrete things, study groups are like, part of the survival code in business school, and you have to choose well. And I remember my study group being a 60-plus-year-old Caucasian male doctor, a peer from Yale, Asian woman, and a Latina who had been in the TV business. I think she had worked at Disney. And so we were this motley crew, and we just hung tight, and we got through school. And through studying, we not only learned and mastered accounting, but we learned about each other, and we were a very different group. So I think it's important for students to choose wisely those groups, whether it's the study group or the AMR group, because these are decisions that affect our success.
I came across a transcript of you on a show called Firing Line.
Oh my God. Yes.
And
you did research.
I did. And I thought, I don't know how you managed. I just read the transcript,
yes.
And it sounded like reading it sounded like the most intense conversation with William F. Buckley.
Yes.
And you and the other panelists.
Yes.
I'm just curious, what was that experience like, and how?
The polar opposite of this. It was very uncomfortable. William F. Buckley Jr. was a Yale alum, class of 1950, and he was interviewing 5 members of the class of 1985. Yale was by then coeducational, far more diverse, and he made a statement that was very judgmental about things like ethnic studies and, opined like, why would something like that even exist? And I remember my temperature going up, like on the spot, 10 degrees, and feeling like I had to defend it. I was an economics and political science major at Yale, but I just remember feeling like this man has no idea about the America he's sitting in now, the Yale campus he's sitting on now. And it was a very difficult interview. I was a week beyond my graduation. I was still a very naive, optimistic, green, wet behind the ears girl, being interviewed by a guy who had a show called The Firing Line. It felt like I was on the firing line. I was.
When I read the transcript, I was like, you all held your own, though. I mean, it wasn't, You know, what was amazing is, I mean, because I could read it. It was like,
Yeah.
you were like, there was one point where you said, you know what you said is offensive.
Yeah.
And I think back, I don't know, you know, if I were 20, 21, would I have the courage to, you know, to do that on TV with William F. Buckley Jr.,
I know.
with that voice and all of that?
In some ways, I might have been more courageous then than I am now. I think I've picked my words more carefully now. But I was offended and I told him so. Yeah. So he didn't give a damn. He was, you know, it's my world, it's my show. Thank you very much.
No, that came across too. He was like,
Yeah. He thought things like diversity were just kind of recreational, you know, fancies. So.
He pretty much said that.
Yeah. But you know, I'm grateful to have had. It was an honor to represent Yale. I had really no idea how real that was in that moment. And I remember when it finally came out, my parents watching it and feeling like it was a very big deal. So
They were proud of you.
I think they were. Yeah. I think of that interview with still the terror of that moment. So very different than this.